Hey fellow tennis nerds, I hope all is well. I have a slight cold today if you think I sound weirder than usual. But hopefully you've been waiting for this YONEX VCORE 2023 racket review. This is the 98 I'm holding in my hand, but I will go through all of them. Kind of my first impressions. I've played with them for a while. 3 different rackets, the 95, the 98, and the 100 VCORE. And the VCORE is YONEX spin line. So this is the Aero or the Head Extreme. This is where YONEX try to maximize spin potential, string movement, lift on the ball for you players who hit with a lot of spin, or for you who hit more flat and want a little bit of help with the trajectory of your shots. 7th generation VCORE. I have a review of the previous generation, a few previous generations on my YouTube channel and tennisnerd.net. I like that one. Wasn't 100% convinced. Usually the 95 is my go-to racket, but I also enjoy testing obviously 98 and 100. YONEX usually like to make a significant change for the racket releases. I like that. I think it makes sense to give the consumer something new, and if they want to stay with the previous generation, they can, or if they want to update to this one, it requires a bit of an adjustment. That could be a downside if you just want like an easy transition from one generation to the other. But if you like a frame, I would recommend usually to stock up on that one and stay with that one, because it's usually some kind of difference in between generations, even for brands like Head & Wilson that do slightly smaller changes to the rackets than I would say YONEX do. So what's new with the VCORE 7th generation, the 2023? Quite a lot. They have silicone oil-infused grommets to increase the snapback and the movement of the strings. That's going to help the spin. Obviously, with the polyester, the strings move and then snap back into place, and they want to accelerate this. Some brands call them the spin grommets or something like that. Usually, they are more open grommets here to create more movement of the string bed. They have also made the frame different, like they have widened it out here, and it's also thinner in places. So this is a new beam design, and it actually moves faster through the air. I think that was the idea. It feels even faster to swing. So if you're a guy or girl who likes to really get some racket head speed on your shots, this one should make you happy because it feels really aerodynamic and fast through the air. And they have also changed the throat of the racket to make it a bit more stable. I'm not exactly sure how this works scientifically, but they do feel a little bit more solid than the previous generation. But I think it could do also with that the swing weight, meaning the weight it has through the air, is slightly higher on these rackets. Nothing excessive, but it's slightly higher, I would say. The rest is technology that remains. We have the vibration dampening mesh in the handle that takes away some of those nasty vibrations. Can also mute the feel too much. Little bit of a double-edged sword there. Not a huge fan of too much vibration dampening, because then you don't quite feel the ball and get enough feedback. Depends a little bit on what you like. But the VDM is in the new YONEX rackets. Isometric head shape, the only brand really that has that kind of idea. I mean, Head tried it now on the Boom with their Morph Beam, which is somewhat similar. But this is a YONEX invention from the early days, the isometric flatter shape to get more of a sweet spot. They have liner tech, they have 2G NAMD Flex Force, which is a mouthful, and yeah, the marketing jargon, you can take it for what you want. Don't listen too much to that. Try to play the racket and see how it plays, because what the manufacturers say and what it actually happens in the racket, it's completely up to you. And a racket is very personal. Some might like the previous generation, some might like this new one. You know how it goes. In terms of specs, I have tested the 3 models. We can start with the 95. Nothing huge here. As you can see, there's a difference in the beam profile. And I felt like the 95 gives you a bit more power, this one, and a little bit more lift on the ball, and that's what I see with all of them. But we'll get into that when we see how they play. But I wouldn't say that there are any drastic changes with the 95, 98, or the 100. From the spec point of view, it's all about what happens when you actually play with the frame. I would say the swing weights are slightly higher, which is a thumbs up, makes them more stable. I did not feel the need to customize any of these rackets, including the 95, which I've always felt the need to customize in previous generations. When it comes to strings, I strung the rackets with different YONEX strings that I'm familiar with. The 95 got the softer YONEX Polytour Pro 1.25 at 51 pounds or 23 kilos. The 98 got YONEX Polytour Strike 1.25 at 53 pounds. And the 100 got YONEX Polytour Rev at 55 pounds or 25 kilos. So I tried a little bit of different setups that I think would suit these rackets and also correspond well with the previous generation and the strings I tested in those. Before we move into how the rackets play, I want to thank my sponsor Fuzzy Yellow Balls and their singles playbook, which I can recommend you check out. I bought this product over a year ago. It teaches you patterns of play, how to beat certain types of players, which I really find useful. It's not only the racket that makes you a better player, it's also understanding how to play tennis and how to use your different strategies, shots, utilize opponents' weaknesses, and find different patterns of play that can open up ways to win more points. So this is a guide and a playbook that is also online. So with each lesson in here, there are also videos that you can watch, and that helps the learning process and understanding of these concepts. So check it out. The link is in the description if you're curious about the singles playbook. How does the new line of VCORE rackets play? And for the power category, obviously the bigger the head size, the more power you're gonna get. Same goes for the spin, so that is pretty self-evident. If you have the 95, the smallest head size, it's gonna have the least amount of power and the most amount of control. Then you have the 98 in the middle, and the 100 is gonna be the most of everything. It's the triple whopper of the VCORE line. It has a lot of everything. Getting into power, I would say that this generation of the VCORE is the most powerful one I've played with. I know the SV is stiffer, but I felt like the ball really wants to go with this line of rackets. They've done some significant updates. The ball really wants to explode out of the string bed. Still, the rackets are softer, so they feel better on the arm. The stiffness ratings are lower. So if you have tennis elbow concerns, I think these rackets could be considered, even though they are kind of modern spin and power oriented rackets. They feel really nice on impact. So there's definitely more power in this one than the previous generation. That obviously comes at a cost. Some with the 98 and the 100, I sometimes struggle to control the depth of my shots. But if power is what you're looking for, then you'd like those rackets. My friend Edgar, he tried these and he said that these were probably the best rackets he ever played with. He was really impressed by the new VCOREs. He wasn't sure which one to go for, but when we played points and started playing with serves and stuff, it was clear that the more advanced player you are, the smaller the head size should be with this category, unless you hit with massive amounts of spin. But he hits a flatter ball and found that the 95 worked best for his game, which makes a lot of sense. So for max power, go 100. For the max control, go 95. Spin, this is what this line of rackets is all about, and they made it a huge thing here. The spin potential of these frames is massive. We have a lot of string movement happening, so probably string life will be a little bit diminished, but you will have that potential that the ball really kicks up towards your opponent. And I noticed that when playing against someone wielding these frames, but I also noticed it when playing with these frames and the feedback from my opponents. The spin potential with these frames is impressive. I don't think I've seen anything quite similar. Sometimes some ripstick O-ports, that's very spinny as well. The Arrow is obviously a more spin-oriented frame, but the latest Arrow was a bit more controlled in the launch angle. This one really kicks up. Not as much with the 95, but still quite a lot for a 95. But the 100 is a machine. Like, it's a power weapon with loads and loads of spin. And you need to be able to control that launch angle, because I did struggle with that on the larger head sizes here, that the ball really wants to curve upwards when you hit the ball. If that's what you like, if that's what makes you play better tennis, you should definitely check out these VCOREs, because they really excel in the spin category. Control, obviously, if you have loads of power, loads of spin, it will come at a cost of control. And I did struggle to rein in the power of these frames. I did feel like a lot of the shots I hit wanted to sail long. Disclaimer, I am more of a flatter hitter, more of an old school player. So generally, I like to get more of a penetrating shot instead of the loopy swings. But even players that hit with a bit more spin noticed that the ball really wanted to kick out of the string bed. So bear that in mind if you're shopping for a spin frame like these. This will provide a lot of launch angle. One way to combat that is to use a hybrid setup. So if you can put, for example, a multi-filament or a gut in the mains, kind of limit that launch a bit, and then you can put a poly in the crosses. I think you will have a little bit of a flatter trajectory. That would be one option, because otherwise the ball really wants to kick up. And if you hit kick serves, it's amazing, feels really nice. Or if you hit with massive spin on your ground strokes, you'll like these frames a lot. But I did struggle with controlling my depth. The 95 was the best one for me. 95 was the best one for Edgar as well. If you want a more controlled launch angle, go 95. The max of everything, you go 100. And you're kind of in the middle. The 98 is very nice on the arm, easy to use, very forgiving for a 98, and still produces loads of power and spin. The comfort category is quite interesting here because they have really reduced the stiffness of these frames. They feel very plush when hitting with them. Nice pocketing in the string bed, quite different from the previous generation. And that was probably the most impressive aspect besides the spin, that they felt very comfortable. Usually these spin power rackets, as you know, they are quite stiff, quite firm, can lead to some tennis elbow issues or shoulder pain. These felt very soft and quite dampened. The problem when they are too dampened is that you might lose a bit of the ball when you play, and I felt that was a downside of these frames, that I sometimes didn't quite know where in the string bed I hit the ball, didn't get enough feedback. Sometimes I think that's the VDM tech there, the vibration dampening mesh, the handle that makes me lose the sensation of where I hit the ball. And this is something that doesn't only happen with new YONEX frames, it happens all across the industry. In a response to like rampant tennis elbow, I think a lot of brands are really trying to get some dampening into the frames, which can hurt old school guys like me who really like to feel the ball. So it's always a little bit tricky what you like, but it's definitely an industry trend to go for more dampened frames. And I would say that is a bit of a con with these new rackets. Before we summarize, I want to say that if you need help finding a racket for you and your game, check out my consultation service on tennisnerd.net or my racket course, The Road to the Right Racket, and the extra content on patreon.com/tennisnerd. You will find the links in the description. Thanks for your support. Alright, so summarizing these frames, the new VCOREs are a gutsy move. They are softer, they are more launchy, more powerful. It's just more of everything. Nice pocketing on the ball, great comfort. Everything is pretty cool with these frames. I must say they were really like a smash hit from the first session, especially the 95. For me personally, I like the extra control. It's the best 95 I've played with, even since the 95D, which I know some of you really love because of the Wawrinka effect. But I feel like this one was probably my favorite 95 so far. So the new VCOREs are my favorite VCORE generation as of yet, I would say. My complaint with these are the control and the feedback. And the feedback is something that I felt with pretty much all recent rackets, almost across brands. The dampening is sometimes the thing that kind of, you know, bothers me. And there's no perfect racket for anyone, so there's always going to be something. But the dampening here takes away some of the feedback, and the launch angle takes away some of the control. So I feel the ball really wants to go high on most shots, and it's hard to then sometimes gauge your depth. The least concern with that is on the 95, but the most is with the 100. The 100 is the most fun because it's such a high-paced racket. The serve is a bomb. You can hit big ground strokes. It's just so fun to use. But the risk is obviously that you're going to overhit, and that's what happened when I was playing sets with the 100, for example. The 95 was the one that felt like the most reliable racket for my game. But I think the answer for most people is actually in the middle here. It's the 98. Very soft on the arm, good balance of power and spin. Just an overall real winner, like a great frame, this 98. And the comfort, as I've said before, is very impressive. I've just really liked that they reduced the stiffness of these frames, and the pocketing in the string bed is really nice. So I'm sure these new VCOREs will find a pretty big fan base. I'm pretty sure of that. I will keep using them more, testing some more string setups, see if I can reduce the launch angle a bit, increase the control. But overall, this was a great playtest. Really like them. If you're a fan of spin rackets or the YONEX VCORE line, you need to try these rackets. And I'm keen to hear what you think about it if you do, because obviously we're all different, we'll have different tastes, and I want to see where we end up kind of as a community on these frames. But from my viewpoint, not being a spin player, not generally being the kind of guy who plays with spin rackets, I must say these are the most fun spin rackets I've tried. That this includes the extremes and the arrows, which were also good. So the spin category probably had the best updates in a while, I would say. This is where they seem to put a lot of effort. And I did really like all three, the extreme, the arrow, and the VCORE. The softest on the arm seemed to be the VCORE. The extreme teams were also quite soft and nice, to be honest, but then you need to customize a bit. But the arrow was also an improvement with the control. So this is a tough category now to pick your frame from, because there are quite a few good ones. But I would say these are the most muted, softest of the bunch. If that sounds like something you'd like, check these out. They're great frames, and I won't hesitate to recommend these rackets to players who are looking for something along the lines of more spin, more power, but with some good comfort. If you wonder about the t-shirt, it's from Stick It Wear. My buddy Joe there, he's an artist who makes some really interesting interpretations of iconic tennis moments like this one. All right, that's about it for this one. Please support the channel by subscribing, checking out the links in the description, and have a nice day, and don't forget to play some tennis.